You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos Podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Bahagan Yernosian, and joining me today for the first time in 2024, Tessa Heron. Welcome, Tessa.
Yo, yo, yo.
So you told me earlier you're in New York. How is spring in Brooklyn?
It is so nice. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. The flowers are blooming. The New Yorkers are coming out. It's raining all the time.
Everyone's starting to shed their winter shells, both
The
literally
taxi
and
cabs are
figuratively.
splashing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. One thing I've been really obsessed with as somebody who is so interested in like urban design and alternative modes of transportation to cars
Mm-hmm.
is how bikeable the streets are and how integrated the access to bikeable streets
Oh,
is.
that's so important.
Yes. So I've never seen this in any other city. The Google Maps
Yeah.
shows you your directions. If you pick biking directions, it shows you how much of the trip is going to be in protected bike lanes.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's
So the
cool.
infrastructure is so deep that it's like there, and then it's like on the map.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't that's a really great feature of Google, and also it's great that Brooklyn has much protected bike space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all over New York. It's an extremely bikeable city.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. Yeah.
Cuz you know, streets are not inherently great for sharing between bikes
Yeah.
and cars unless you have a culture where you're like used to doing it. Like when I was in Vietnam, yeah, of course cars are used to sharing the road with tons of bikes because that's how people grew up driving. But here in the U.S., it's like you very rarely run into bicyclists when you're driving, especially if you're driving in like the Midwest or something where not even that many people bike. And then it's like it can get awkward. And this actually came to a head.
Flash aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive for sure. And this came to a head when I was sitting in my buddy's Tesla. He was testing out the self-driving stuff. And oh man, oh boy, that was a wild ride. That was a wild
Why?
ride. um, Only a couple times did it like almost run into people. It drove very aggressively. My friend even admitted it drove more aggressively than he tends to drive,
Did
and
it scare people? Were people like, ah?
it scared us. It scared us one time, and another time I was like, one time where I was like, I told my friend he should override it. Is that so? And this is where it's relevant. We were driving on the road, and there's parked cars on one side, and in between us and the parked cars, there's a bicyclist. Seattle's a very like a lot of people bike, so of course you're gonna run into bicyclists, and the Tesla moved around it just fine on its own. We didn't have to intervene there. But then I noticed that we stopped at the light, and the Tesla tends to hug the curb as close as possible. And in this case,
Oh, God.
it was parked cars. So I was like, oh, I think we're a little too close because the bicyclist was behind us and was certainly going to make it to the car before we left. And there was basically no space for the bicyclist to get through because the Tesla wasn't thinking, it's like AI thing wasn't thinking about the bicyclist.
Yeah, that's where bikes ride. Yeah.
And that can create a very bad situation for the bicyclist.
Hell yeah, getting squeezed into the curb.
Yeah. Or no, in this case, it was being squeezed into a parked car.
Wow, wow, wow.
So I was like, hey, we should override this and move a little bit to give the bicyclist space. And sure enough, the bicyclist was able to move through afterwards. But it's these small things that like they didn't think about when they were testing this thing. And like they're like, oh yeah, it knows how to move around bikes, but doesn't know how to anticipate where the bike is going to be later, which is something that our minds try to do. A lot of us maybe a lot of people don't do it, unfortunately, and that's why we need these protected spaces for bikes.
Yes. And this could be an oversight on Tesla's part. Or maybe it's a feature because the war on cars is happening and clearly they're getting drones now. And part of the reason cars are so entrenched in our infrastructure is because they actually squeeze the space out for other things.
Yeah.
It's like it makes people feel unsafe biking. People are like, I would prefer to be in a car because it's more safe. And so in biking, and the thing that makes biking unsafe is cars.
Yeah. I also wonder how much the capital incentive, the profit incentive plays into it, because it's a lot more, there's a much bigger industry around making cars. Has been a lot more profit around making cars than trains and buses and bikes. So, of course, that's what's going to be pushed. And then, when our cities were being planned, most of our cities in this country that were planned, they were planned around cars. How many cities, like, there are so few cities in this country that are not built around cars, where they're just
Truly.
like sections of place and then big parking lots, and then sections of place and big parking lots, and they're all super far from each other. You can't possibly get there by any other means. Huge
Yes,
roads.
it's the problems. It's the root of all evil, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, and like you said, it makes like an unsafe environment because it
Oh yeah.
squeezes out everybody else. You can't walk, it's hard to walk on the street. It's hard to bike on the street. The street is basically like you know, I'm thinking of like Frogger, right? Where
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the street is this dangerous river that if you touch it, you're in danger. You're in jeopardy.
Yeah. It's bad. Yeah, and in New York, this is an interesting thing that's happening too. RE shared space and different modes of transportation. That is becoming clearly an extremely classist debate. Which cars
Mm,
are
mm-hmm.
inherently classist? To
Yeah,
own a car, to
es-
be,
especially nowadays, cars are expensive. You can't spend a
yeah,
couple grand on a car.
yeah, they're impractical in a city in every way too. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so New York has some congestion pricing going on that's like taxing the main roadways during rush hour and stuff to
Uh,
keep people off.
mm-hmm.
And of course, there's so much backlash. Car drivers are all upset because they don't want to pay more because they're like, oh, we already have to pay for parking. And it's like, yeah, get it, take the
I
hit.
mean, it's New York. You don't have to drive.
Yeah, but I've been seeing, so it's interesting because there's a campaign for and against this, and the
Yeah.
campaign for it is like there's signs on the bus and the trains and stuff that are like quoting the wait times or what it takes for 30 people who make $12 an hour to get across town. It takes everybody longer to get to their jobs for one person to get to their job who makes this much income, like this, they were really laying it out that like
Mm,
the average bus rider makes this much. And even though there's 40 people on the bus all going to their jobs, they get to their jobs slower. Their commute takes twice as long
yeah.
than someone who's in a car because of all the freaking cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the congestion pricing. Yeah. So it's interesting, and it's like also like so there's a huge equity intersection for like income, but there's also like the shared resource of the road. Like one of the posters is about faster ambulance response times
Oh, true.
of
Yeah.
actually being able to use roads in an emergency. That's
Mm-hmm.
a shared resource that yeah, so it's interesting, but the power of the car owner is like so mighty. I don't even know, like I don't know if it'll get like repealed or like downgraded. Maybe they'll lower the tax or like make some exemption
Yeah.
if you work at a bank or something like ridiculous.
Yeah, they call them essential businesses or something.
Exactly. Someone's lawyer is like defining it right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My car is my church.
I like how a lot of like European cities do it, where it's just like it's like kind of impractical to drive a car within the city center, or it's
Yeah,
flat out
yeah.
banned within the city center.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes such a nice environment. It's like it feels cleaner. It's like more pleasant to be around. It's like a giant park.
The
And
photos are better. It's like a giant park,
yeah.
you know? Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's so nice when you have that whole space. Like a giant like a like in Europe you get these giant like town squares where it's not like a park, it's paved, but like it's open for whatever. If you want to be doing your street performance, you can do that. If you're a bunch
Yeah.
of friends hanging out, having a drink, you can do that. If you want to like
Smoking weed, the teenagers.
yeah. If you want to let your kids go play soccer somewhere, it can be that. Like it's whatever. It's just open. And here we decided, no, I would rather it to be a parking lot.
Yes. The isolation. And this is like the capitalist dream RE. Well, I'm thinking about our more of our discussion about environmental impacts and
Hmm.
stuff. But RE, the Teslas and the hybrids and the electric vehicles, it's like such a dream to be like, yeah, yeah, I think we should all go electric because that's just another opportunity to make more profit,
Yeah,
create more
exactly. Now, yeah, they're like,
industry.
you've got to get rid of your old cars. Now buy our new cars.
The solution is never to just make it simpler and make it better and cleaner and like change the environmental infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's always just buy something else.
And it's like no matter how efficient those cars will get, no matter how clean they'll get, supposedly, it's not going to be nearly as efficient as just more public transit, more
Yeah.
mass public transit.
Yeah. The inequity is still there.
Hmm.
The congestion is still
Yeah.
there. The just like production complex is still there. The isolation.
Yeah. And I think about like, Seattle's not a big city. We have like 1 million people, if that. And we have congestion versus like cities that are 5 times the size, maybe 10 times the size, like exist in this world that have way less congestion.
Oh yeah. It makes everybody miserable too. Like the I experienced this in a car and not in a car. Like an angry person in the car, you know?
Okay, I
It's
do
such
want
a
to
different
explore that a bit.
experience.
Like where does that anger come from?
I don't know, you know, there's an expectation that I'm like, I'm in my car, I'm getting where I'm going. I'm probably like pressed for time.
Hmm.
Why else would I be driving a car, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And and there's this feeling of this is my world. Everyone else is like in my way, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a almost helplessness too, like when you're sitting in traffic or sitting at a red light or other drivers around you are being ridiculous, whatever, like you're just like stuck. Biking, you can weave around and keep
Hmm.
moving.
And you feel like the air on your face or your skin, and like you're
Yeah.
outside, or you don't feel as disconnected.
Yes. You're more in the world as a part of it instead of as an adversary
Yeah.
to it.
My cousin actually had very similar reflections to you as on driving, and that was a big reason why she ended up getting rid of her car, because and looking for alternative ways of transporting and moving to a city where she could live like that, because ultimately she found like yeah, you're in a metal coffin, you're in a metal box, and you are isolated from everyone in so many ways. Like you can't hear them, you can barely see them. Like how often can you really see into another car? How often do you really look to like make make eye contact with?
Everyone's texting. I've looked.
Yeah. And it's so like, and I've met so many people who like are normally very sweet and kind who get angry. Like road rage is a common experience. And that to me is like, as someone who is uncomfortable with anger as a response, it amazes me that this is something that like people are just okay with and
Yeah.
aren't like holy shit, this was how I acted. Oh my god, what is I need therapy. I shouldn't be
I
acting
know.
like this.
It brings out the worst in us. It really
Yeah. How
does.
are we okay with this?
So funny. Yeah. I work in the health field, and there's some survey that's done at a national level. I've been meaning to look into this and I keep forgetting, that has this metric in it. It's this like health survey, and they're like, do you eat fruits and vegetables? Do you do physical exercise? And then one of the questions is always, do you drive alone to work?
Oh.
And I always was like, what the fuck is that
Uh-oh.
doing in there? Why so random?
Uh-oh.
And
Someone's noticed some correlations.
yes, it's like a huge like public health like indicator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Predictor, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
look into
Wow.
it now.
Wow. That's
I'll have more on the next episode.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Cause like, yeah, it's put next to us things that are so obvious, like eat fruits and vegetables, exercise. Although I should say, I don't think the eating fruits and vegetables is as obvious to people as it should be. And now we have like, cause now we have this whole industry of like, hey, you're not getting all of the nutrients you need throughout the day. So give me like $30 a month and I'll send you a gross green shake to drink, and then you can feel like you're doing it.
So true.
And it's like, I get it. It's hard to like eat a perfectly balanced, like perfect diet or whatever, but like you don't have to eat a perfect diet. Just like, just eat some fruits and vegetables. Like make it a regular thing and you're probably going to be okay.
It's totally life changing. But it there's a lot of things about our environment that is not conducive to it.
Yeah.
There's I can't remember the last time I talked to you, but I've been really on the concept of time, man,
Okay.
as an oppressive element, because
Ooh.
the reason people get so reliant on cars is because they're like, I have to get to work, right? And I have to get there fast because I don't have that much time because I'm working, whatever. And then, with the groceries, it's like you have to go to the grocery store like once a week at least to get like fresh produce.
Yeah.
That's like a time haul, like being able to prepare it, cut it, slice it. That's like, do you have a home and a kitchen that has those amenities, to like be preparing like fresh foods? And I think that a lot of Americans are just like not there, It's just like maybe relying more on like microwave fast food kind of stuff. Like,
Do you think
I don't know.
do you think it's a problem of like material resources or time management, or cuz like, prepping fruits and vegetables, like a knife will do. Like any kind of sharp edge.
True.
It's not like you need a pressure cooker or the latest greatest like appliance or an oven.
Yes, this is a good thing to bring up because I think about this too, because that you probably saw this a lot in Vietnam, that there's fresh fruit everywhere and there's
Everywhere.
not a lot of material resources
Yeah,
otherwise, right?
everywhere. You just need a knife to peel it, or just like, or
Uh-huh.
use your hands, right? Like I grew up peeling oranges by hand.
Wait, what? What? People have hands for eating fruit out of the woods? Is that what these are for? I thought it was for a keyboard this whole time.
Someone forgot to tell the monkeys that they needed to develop tools. They needed to develop kitchen counters before they could eat fruit.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
literally
but
it's
it is
literally in its
cultural,
own
too.
packaging, and it's easy to open.
The fingernails just slice through the skin.
Yeah. So I think people have the material means to eat fruits and vegetables, and
Okay.
you don't even have to cook them
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much infrastructural considerations, you know.
Yeah,
There's
the infrastructure I agree is a bigger issue. Like, I
yeah.
like if you are stuck in a food desert, if you're in a small town in the U.S. where you don't really have a grocery store anymore because they all like ran out of business, the only thing you have that's close is maybe like a Walmart or something. Which,
Gas
like,
station pizza.
yeah,
That's Iowa's like hallmark. The gas stations have amazing pizza because everywhere's a fucking food desert.
yeah.
You know?
Which so like yeah, there's definitely this infrastructural like bias in a lot of the country where like you have no choice. You are basically forced to eat the things that are subsidized in the country. Um, and those aren't what's nutritious, those are what's highly profitable.
Yeah, it's like the cheapest, most fucked up ingredients that are just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably there's an element of addiction involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sugar, high fructose corn
Oh yeah.
syrup.
I mean, we
You
know that
know, there's
sugar
like,
is highly
yeah,
addictive.
yeah, it literally like alters your brain chemistry when you're making decisions about what you eat and like
Mhm.
food insecurity, you know, the mental health, behavioral health behind everything of like making those decisions. All that's in the fucking garbage, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think the time management, the time resource is a part of it too. Is a part of the problem, and but I think it's like, it's interesting because the time for me it seems like in a lot of cases the time resource problem isn't that people don't actually have enough time, because a lot of these things that you can simple things you can do don't really take that much time to improve your health, like, but but there but this it's easy to get into this air of like anxiety around your time,
Right.
because if you are spending so much of your day like on a commute, at work, busy with other things like errands, taking care of kids, whatever, then you have so much going on that time feels like it goes by so quickly that you don't have you spend, if you do have time, you're spending time worrying about the time that you don't have.
Exactly. Exactly. It's yeah, everyone's feeling this pressure and our time gets kind of co-opted weirdly by like things like scrolling, you know, like that's just like
Yeah.
a weird time suck that
Yeah.
everyone just loses.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not and if you so like yeah, that's what I've noticed. Like I've cut back on certain things in my life, and I'm like, oh, I've got so much more time now, and it's like just cut back on like phone time or screen time in general, and like it opens up a whole
Drinking, drinking,
drink. Oh yeah, yeah,
alcohol.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely cut back on that.
Time suck.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but at least that it could be tied with like social interactions and human connection. I think human connection is always worthwhile,
Yeah. That is
but
so
you don't have to
funny.
drink.
Right, 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 right. Or you can drink kava. Have you heard of this?
What is kava?
Kava? Yeah, I just heard about this. This is a um some kind of there's bars here, there's kava bars. It's
Okay,
from
is that like
some
the is kava like a vegetable or something, or am I thinking of?
yeah, it has some kind of euphoric effect that's like,
Huh.
you know, not alcohol, but people are drinking it as a substitute.
Oh,
I
interesting.
haven't been to a bar yet, but
Hmm.
it's the thing.
Okay, okay, that's the hip thing. All right, all right. It might be
Yeah.
interesting to check out.
Yeah, alternative to alcohol,
Yeah.
social drinking lounge.
Yeah, alcohol as like a social drinking thing just feels, it's such a weird thing. Like I don't understand. I don't understand why that's the social thing, because, half the time when you drink enough, it's just a depressant, and then like you don't feel like being social, or you're social in the worst ways.
Right. I know. Oh God, dude. I went to some museum in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and like in the literal like founding of this country, like alcohol and the banks were heavily involved and the artillery. Like
Really?
alcohol was right in there in the founding. Yeah. Yeah. It all just like made perfect sense. I was like, "Oh, of course that's how it's designed."
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I guess if I look at it, if I think about like the history of like alcohol, it's been a profit center for a long time.
Right.
So not a surprise that the banks that like helped fund the country did not want that to
Yeah.
be done.
It has an opiating effect on the population too.
Yeah.
A self-medicating kind of like, oh, it's all right. You know, everybody's like, oh, is it 5 o'clock? Yeah, fuck my life.
Yeah, and it's not just our culture either. This seems to be like it's a ubiquitous thing across different countries. Like you go to um you go to like Japan and Korea, and you know like, and I guess in this case, their case, 6 or 7 o'clock comes around, and they're all hitting the bars, and then they stay out until like midnight, and then like rinse and repeat.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lifestyle. I can't handle the hangovers. I just can't do it.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have cut back significantly, and
That's
it's great. I don't really like being drunk, so. And we've probably talked about this several times that like it's not a fun space to be in.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Ugh.
It's like for me, it's like the worst part of dreams, where it's like I want to interact, but like I can't mentally or physically interact.
Right. Or you make stupid mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, you're in basically like a waking dream.
Yeah, yeah, you can misread stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it is fun. I don't know. I like getting drunk every once in a while.
Yeah, it's nice to. I mean, once in a while.
It reminds me of college. I don't know. High school. Good times. Yeah. And I did want to mention RE fruits and vegetables. I don't know if you've ever had a good tomato bought in the store. There's something particularly shitty about buying tomatoes.
I don't think I've ever had like an amazing tomato from a store.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
I almost feel like other fruits and vegetables are like okay.
Yeah.
Tomatoes that get really screwed over though. Like I don't think I could convince someone to eat a store-bought tomato no matter what. Like it doesn't it doesn't add
Yeah.
any flavor. It's just kind of like a bad representation of fruits.
Yeah, yeah. Like you get
Or
like a nice
vegetables.
homegrown tomato, and you can just eat it straight. Like you don't need
Totally.
to put it on a salad or on a sandwich or whatever. You can just eat it, and it's delicious. It's got like that sweetness. I think so. I know that in the U.S., a lot of our tomatoes are like grown in like greenhouses. And I know, like, I was reading about Europe, and maybe this is also the U.S. So the Netherlands is a big agricultural country, and they grow a lot of the tomatoes that are in the rest of Europe, or in a lot of parts of Europe, and probably some of them that come to the U.S. Just because I guess they're so good at it. But like Netherlands isn't a place that particularly gets a lot of sun, not a
That
place
is
that tomatoes
strange.
are great at
Right.
growing at, but they've got the greenhouse technology and growing them at an efficient scale.
And they get good tomatoes there?
They're okay. The ones in greenhouses are never going to be as good as the ones that are grown with the sun, or like in a more
Right.
natural environments. So, but we live in this world where you can get everything you want whenever you want. If you want to eat dragon fruit in December in Ohio, you can do it. It's going to be
Right.
expensive and it's not going to taste very good, but you could do it.
Right, right, right. Love those options to buy. I also am thinking about the cultural aspects of eating fruits and vegetables. This is
Okay.
fucking funny. So back in the past, when I worked
Hmm.
in an office, I would sometimes bring my breakfast and or
Yeah.
lunch to work.
Yeah, yeah, as like it's,
And
which is sensible.
yes, and I received the nickname of fruit bat because I was eating fruit. Everyone's like, geez, you fucking fruit nut. I'm like, okay, like actually you're supposed to eat like 5 a day and this is only two, so
I know, I know. Like I feel like I don't eat much. I mean, I eat like fruit like maybe once, maybe twice a day, and that's like not
yeah.
enough. But like most of the people I know barely touch a fruit.
No, yeah, no, I know, right? It's shocking to people to see someone eat fruit like
Yeah,
on a daily basis. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, that's my thing.
yeah. Hey, as far as things to be known, that's not so bad. You're taking your health seriously.
Well, I think it says more about them than it does me. That's all
Oh,
I'm
definitely,
saying.
definitely.
I'm just like, is that like so unusual?
Oh man, so I'm grateful that my mom and my sister are eating fruit. So I want to put out that applause, congrats. But when I was visiting last week, I noticed that they had the fruit that they had was like pre-cut fruit in a bowl. Like they bought the pre-cut fruit bowls from the grocery
Right.
store, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, you spent $20 on this? You could have just bought all of these fruits for like half the price.
This is another gap.
Yeah.
What do you think was stopping them?
I think it's just the convenience. I think it's like the
Convenience.
time, right? They
Yeah.
think about it and they're like, "Oh, it would be kind of like inconvenient to like, chop all of the fruit myself. So, I can
Right.
just buy it pre-chopped."
Yeah, there's all kinds of things too. Another element of it I think is like how to do it.
Yeah.
All fruits are kind of different. They have different seeds and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Uh
But
and
you
then there's the
learn.
yeah, right, right, which takes a little bit of time. You could watch
Yeah.
a YouTube video of how to cut a papaya.
Yeah, yeah. There's no shame
But
in that.
no, not at all. But people don't even have that cross their mind. They don't even like
Mhm.
think about how easy and accessible it would be to just like figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I have this belief that our bodies are foreign to us and like our nature is foreign to us. And
Mm.
this is like a great example. Like fruit, fruit is so easy to eat that monkeys have figured it out. We figured out how to eat fruit like millions and millions of years ago.
Right? It's like made for us. It's like some
Yeah.
fucking Garden of Eden
Yeah.
shit for real. It's
Yeah.
like here's your fruit. Now you know what to do with it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think another piece of it is the waste. The infrastructure for organic waste. So, one thing about eating a lot of fruits and vegetables is your garbage is different, right? You
Mhm.
have all of this
Mhm.
like peels and all of this like stuff that like
Yep.
stinks. It's like moist and heavy and like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and a lot of places like don't do. I know what
Like
Seattle is
composting.
like. I know Seattle
Yeah.
does not fuck with organic waste going in the landfill.
Yeah. Which
It's very
is one
you.
thing
It's
I
like you
really
have to
appreciate.
pay to not compost or something, right?
I don't know the details there, but it probably is because like at this point, every single apartment complex like has composting facilities
Mm-hmm.
or like at least a
Which is
compost bin. That's it. You just
which
need a
is
bin.
yeah, which is so radical.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
amazing.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something I've thought about and noticed before too, thinking about my what to do with my compost. It
Yeah, because
piles up.
when you don't have that infrastructure, you're right. your trash stinks. Your like
Hmm.
it brings in like pests and stuff, and you're like, man, you feel bad. Like you don't want to throw this in a landfill because it can be perfectly used to compost and reuse it in other ways.
Yep. Yep. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
At least for so a tip for vegetables though, that I've been using a lot, because even though I have a compost, like I found that I use the leftover vegetable butts and skins and throw them in the freezer, and I put them in a bag, and then when I'm ready, I make a stock out of them.
I thought you said sock. I was like, what the fuck?
A broth.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Carrot ends and stuff. What
yeah,
did you
yeah.
include in there?
Carrot ends, onion skins,
Uh-huh. Uh,
asparagus butts, like
you keep a
basically,
special separate vegetable broth compost.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
I
man.
reuse it. I like, and it's so good. I've made like vegetable stock out of it a couple times, and it's like it's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
in the
awesome.
freezer,
And you store it in the freezer.
it
Yeah.
just throw it in the freezer. It doesn't go bad. It still regains a lot. It still retains a lot of its flavor.
That's like smoking the weed after you volcano it. You're baking it
Oh
into
yeah,
brownies or whatever.
I'm very efficient. And then you save yourself money from buying like expensive stock.
Wow. That is good. That is a good one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my hot cooking tip.
I thought I was fucking on it, man. I thought I was looking at everything with absolute resourcefulness in
Hey,
mind, but
you know what?
I missed that
This is why
one.
we have conversations. We tell people our ideas so that way we can be like, "Whoa, I didn't even think of that as a possibility."
Genius.
I'm glad I could help. And you know what? This was I got encouraged to think this way by one of my friends who's very into sustainability. And so she's like usually actively thinking about like um reducing waste and reusing the things that like we don't typically think about as being helpful.
Yes, I think this is something that I can similarly think of a friend who influenced the way I think about things in a way that has the ripple effects that they would have never anticipated, like just and it's not a singular thing, right? It's a way to look at everything.
Yeah, it's a perspectival shift.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
it shifts how it's like for me it's like it changes maybe slightly, but it changes how I view the world and how what I pay attention
Mhm.
to and what I think or what thing details I think are now important.
Yes, yes. I've got a pretty substantial container collection,
Nice.
of
Yeah.
all of the plastic containers and stuff, little food things, little things. I always find at least a second purpose for them.
Yo, oh yeah. I've got a couple I've got a couple plants that I have potted from like dishwasher capsule containers
Oh,
because they
that's a
come in
good
like
one. Yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
plastic tubs
Those are
and I,
super sturdy. Those little
oh
buckets, those
yeah,
are
oh yeah, they're
nice.
great.
Yeah, yeah. There's a really uh expensive and bougie place nearby that does refills. So if you just have a jar, you
uh
can refill your hand soap there
okay,
all day,
okay.
every day without buying all this hand soap and stuff.
Yeah,
That's pretty sweet infrastructure wise. Like that's game changing. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, just like finding ways of cutting back the plastic. And I it and you know it's small but like you gotta start some you gotta do something.
Yeah, you know what's in plastic? This is the perfect segue.
Okay.
Petroleum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what the US military is interested in? uh Petroleum and dominating the natural resources that are left on this Earth.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we'll
Until
be.
there's no money left to be made.
I'm sure they're also very interested in lithium and all and nickel and all the components in our electronics too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, yes. Which is like, I mean, I think it's all tied together. The plastics, the oil, the cars, the oil. Like,
Yeah. There, there's some patterns, and I was reading into the history of the plastics industry a while back, and it came about during World War II when when all of the metal had to be used for ammunition, basically in the U.S. So there wasn't metal to like make things with.
to stop the genocide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we were on the right side of history that time.
That one time we got forced, we got backed into a corner.
That's true. We kind of got forced into to doing the right thing.
There were economic incentives as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anywho, the history of plastics.
So, but after World War II ended, there the plastics companies or the petroleum companies, now plastics companies, were worried that now metal was going to be start to be used again for like appliances and stuff, and they were not happy with, or they did not want that possibility because they saw how much money they were making and they saw the potential. So, with the power of lobbying, with just a mere couple $1 million and a flick of the wrist, they made it so that they could get some subsidies, made it so that they could like expand a lot better, encapsulate that in legislation. And, and now we've learned that the whole concept that plastics can be recycled was merely marketing from the same plastics companies so that we would keep buying their crap.
That one hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That illumination.
I think,
I've been hearing it too. Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
I've known this for a
Just a
while,
fucking
that
charade. Yeah.
when I first heard like years ago that the way that plastics were used to be recycled in this country was that China bought them. That was how we recycled it. We sold all of the plastic waste to China. But like several years ago, China stopped buying it. And so
They good. What were they doing with it?
I don't know. I think
That's
maybe like,
very interesting.
yeah, I don't exactly know what they were doing with it. Maybe they were like repurposing it, maybe. But then they started producing enough plastic that they're like, okay, we don't need this, and now we're just forming giant like islands in the Pacific.
Aww. Have
And
you?
sorry,
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and like you see how, when I travel around Southeast Asia, I notice like, there's a lot of trash burning because they don't have a place to put the trash. They don't have the infrastructure or
Uh-huh.
the space for landfills. They don't have another country who's going to buy their trash.
No
So
space program to
no
send it to
space program
space.
to chuck it into space. So they have to burn it. And it's always the poorest countries that have no other option. They're the ones burning their trash.
And what does that mean, or what does that imply?
Well,
Is it just like kind of gross
I mean, it's bad for you. Like all those carcinogens that are in
to
the
inhale
plastic.
it?
Yeah, yeah, you inhale it. So
Okay,
it's
it's
not
just like,
just
yeah, it's
it's
just in
not
the
just a
air.
gross thing. It is like known to like cause lots of like lung issues, sicknesses, cancer. Like it's one of the worst things you can burn, and burning things in general is already potentially hazardous from the incomplete combustion products. So like,
Uh,
because combustion isn't a perfect process, there are some incomplete things that get produced, like carbon monoxide and like soot and things like that, and those things are all pretty bad for you. And on top of that, you have these complex plastics that already have like cancerous elements in them, and now you're burning them, and so it's like it's a bad combination.
I see. Yes, and this is a good example of like what people are talking about when it's like climate crisis affects the poorest people the most and first and most severely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I heard that
That,
like Bali had
yeah.
like a 30-day long like garbage fire. Like
Where did?
Bali.
Wow.
Yeah. And like Bali is well known for having been like ravaged by tourism for like decades. And like it's just getting worse and worse and worse to the point where like they had to get rid of the trash somehow. It's an island. What are they going to do?
Wow. Right, right, right. God damn. Probably
Hmm.
Americans just bringing the trash in their fucking suitcases.
Well, that and like to cater to all of the tourists that come from like Australia,
Right.
Europe, America, they have to they have to bring in a lot of stuff, and a lot of that stuff is coming in plastic packaging. So it's like, and it's like, well,
Right.
they need to do
Yeah.
something. Their economy relies on it or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
How interesting. Yeah. Gosh, I know there's something really sick about like the most beautiful places in the world, like relying on American tourism and being
hmm,
like catering to specifically the American or Western tourist.
yeah. And we justify it by saying like, oh, they're poor, they need the tourism money. Like this is their
Hmm.
main industry because we think in terms of economies. We think in terms of GDP. We think in terms of
Yeah, we're like, oh,
prosperity.
we're doing it such a
We're
favor.
doing them. Yeah, I'm going there and I'm stimulating the economy personally. And even the
All
most
those margaritas, all
and
those
even the
pina
most
coladas
well-meaning
later.
people can think of that and say like, I'm justified because if I don't go,
Mhm.
they're going to starve.
Right. Yeah, and it has this whole effect on like, yeah, I mean like the housing, the jobs, like the industry.
Yeah.
It's like you're either in construction building some place for some white person to come, or you're in the hospitality
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
catering to someone's wishes of convenience,
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, peeling their fruits for them,
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Yeah.
And it really is that personal fruit peelers, please.
It is what?
Personal fruit peelers. That's really all that people want.
I would do that. So funny. Yep. Yeah. Wow, what an extensive conversation about fruits and
I
vegetables.
know. They're
I
good
think
for
I
you
can count
people.
this as work.
Your mom
I'm
was
in
right
public
when she
health.
said eat your fruits and vegetables.
Yes, yes, she was. Even though she was buying canned fruits and vegetables, which were kind of shit, but you know,
You know,
they
I
were still technically fruits and vegetables, even if they were in syrup.
I think I think it was after college or no, maybe even my teens when had my first mushroom that didn't come from a can.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's how you start hating mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's so bad. I
That
mean
and
the
like
canned mushrooms, like yeah.
that and like mushrooms on pizza where they don't like really cook the mushroom, so it's just a raw piece of mushroom and it's always like baby portobello mushrooms and so it doesn't really have much flavor. It's got a weird texture and you're like, "Why is this thing on my pizza?"
Yeah, 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 giving the mushroom a bad name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So misunderstood. So
It,
many vegetables get done like that.
yeah. It's true. And like people say like, I was talking to my mom and I was like, like it's good to eat fruits and vegetables. I cook a lot of vegetarian food when I'm at home just because like I know when I go out there's just a lot of meat options. So I might as well get the vegetables in when I'm cooking.
Right.
And my mom was like, "Yeah, but I want to eat flavorful food." And I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Vegetables are sponges for flavor.
yeah, exactly. And some of the most flavorful cuisines on earth are like vegetarian cuisines. Like Indian cuisine is mostly vegetarian and it's some of the most
Vegan
flavorful
even.
food.
Coconut milk, like not even
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yes. How was the Midwest? You went back to
I
Ohio?
went back. It was okay. It was for me like going back to family is always mixed. It's like it's nice to see people and connect, but I definitely feel like over the years the family has been kind of coming undone slowly at the
Hmm.
seams, and like everyone's getting more isolated from each other, and no one wants to like bridge the gaps because it will result in some difficult conversations and some uncomfortable emotions coming out. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
And it
it's tough.
simmers and it just sits there and festers, and the unspoken conversations get covered up by these like weird pleasantries and platitudes and other things that you talk about and always avoid
I
these
think
things.
I think we're past a lot of that. we're at,
That's good.
but we're at the point of like things have already like have frayed at the seams, and now it's like no
Mhm.
one's really talking about it except in like angry whispers, and we've found other ways of pacifying ourselves, and it's yeah, it's sad to see, and it made me realize like I've been away for a long time and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've healed a lot within myself, and I'm noticing a lot of patterns that seem very familiar to me in my own family members. And so maybe it's time that I take a bit of a more active role in trying to help others, help my other
Mhm.
family members try to heal and reconcile, and be there to listen to them and things like that. Because I think ultimately it's like people just want someone to listen to their pain and understand, like be just feel heard. And
Mhm.
if I can do that, maybe I can start to help them melt their shells and start to find the sources of their pain, or at least like be okay talking about it, and then maybe go seek more help along the way.
Yeah, just having a safe space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have been thinking about my family's perspective of when I come back,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
And I just kind of came to the realization the other day that I'm like, damn, they probably like are like so shocked to see how much I've changed from
Yeah.
who they knew so well, and how quickly and how different I am from that person that they knew. It's just like it's understandable that they're also just kind of jarred by how much we know that we've changed,
Mhm.
and it's like
Mhm.
we're with ourselves all day every day. Like, of course, we think it's like a slow or gradual or it all makes sense kind of thing of like,
Yeah.
this is who I am,
Yeah.
and for them to just like see who we are just like on these occasions, and then it's like wow, we have less and less in common every time I see you, like,
Yeah.
what are you fucking talking about, composting, like it's like it all makes sense, and it's just like, yeah, you just come so far, and they only just see you for a small window of time, and no idea where you're coming from.
Yeah. Or like maybe they have because everyone has like an idea of someone in their head, right? Like how we
Right.
understand everyone and people's perspectives is basically just an idea in our head. And if they don't, maybe their idea of you is stuck in time because literally
Hmm.
they haven't had a chance to update it, and maybe they don't want to update it.
Yeah, I think my parents are definitely struggling with that.
Yeah. My
living in
parents
the
definitely.
past, nostalgizing the past. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my parents are also similarly like that. Like my mom always tells me like, "I know you so well." Or she's like, "I know." She's like, I know who you are, like exactly." And I'm like, I don't know about that because like I know I've changed a lot in the past couple years. So I don't know, but like I'm like, okay, I'll let you believe
To
it.
a core,
Yeah.
sure. Yes. Yes. So intimately, your mother knows you, you know. But yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, she knows really, really, really who you are.
Yeah.
Always will.
Always, always.
But the manifestations are all different.
Hmm. How do you feel about when you go back to family? When you go back to visit?
Mm, somewhat like an interloper. You know, it's so interesting to reconnect with your roots and past and history,
Yeah.
always coming from a different perspective. You know, whatever time has elapsed since the last time you were there, it's like things changed, the world changed, your relationship with your family changed, yourself has changed. Like, so to go back to a familiar place that is so close to a place where you were born and raised and have so much foundation experience and stuff, it's always like hugely reflective, which I think is actually something that sets this kind of mentality actually sets me apart and alienates me from that place. You
Hmm.
know, it's weird to even like talk about it and think so deeply and mentally and emotionally about the experience of going home,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, so it's just like, I mean, yeah, it's just to that point that like I've changed so much from where I'm from. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's something that I think I'm understanding more and more of my parents as people,
Yeah.
and I feel a different way about how to approach them. I can't just like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's just you have to, you can't use your old dynamics anymore. It doesn't make sense to see your parents as these people who like know what they're doing anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What
And
when was
yeah,
the moment for you that you kind of realized that about your parents?
mm, I don't know. I don't know if I have any like pivotal things. I kind of think it's just been slowly happening over time. Like
Yeah.
just, just different things. I think even like talking to other people about my parents is helpful. Talking to like my adult siblings about my parents,
Mm.
you know, that's something that's like really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting place, interesting culture. I see it really as a cultural immersion these days because it's so different to me. I'm like, whoa, I'm going on a trip to rural Iowa. How interesting. What
Yeah.
interesting people, what interesting ways that they talk,
Yeah.
and what interesting things they talk about. Like, you know, keeping tabs on like people and weather and stuff. I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah. That's like what occupies their attention.
Yes, I've really been hearing the Midwestern accent, like it's been slapped thrown in my face, like just like listening to it from being away from it. Yeah, I actually translate a lot of conversations I have with people for work,
Okay.
and one of the hilarious I was talking to someone who had kind of like a thick, like Midwest Minnesotan, I don't know what you would call it, accent. And it
Hmm.
kept picking up. She was saying like something about checking the mail, and it kept picking it up as meal. It kept typing it out as meal because she was saying, yeah, check your mail,
Oh,
mail, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I was like, damn, that's heavy.
Yeah, accents are like a strange thing in that way. Well, that's I think an important part, going back to the whole parents conversation, I think an important part of like adulthood or like some kind of pivotal moment in your maturation is when you kind of realize that your parents are human. That your
It's
parents,
weird.
it is weird.
It makes them so vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I think I realized on this trip above more than I have in the past is like how vulnerable and how human they are. And in some ways, like I see them stuck in the same patterns that they've been stuck in for likely since I was a kid, and maybe even earlier than that. They might be dealing there. It sounds to me when I hear them talk about certain things, I hear like these scars that go
Mm.
way further back since before I was born. And you know, it's like I kind of got used to at a young age of like empathizing with my parents, at least my dad, and like trying to empathize with him to like understand why he was causing me pain. And because I wanted to believe that my parents were doing things out of love and doing things out of kindness, but sometimes the worst things we do to people are done out of love. And yeah, I don't know, I guess like, so I'm used to from a young age of like seeing my parents as more complicated than just like this superior being, this guardian over me. It's like they're these complex
Mm.
people.
Yes. I think some of the things I've been noticing about my parents are also like being able to like really see like generational trauma coming in
Yeah.
through what they're talking about, how they act, the way that they conserve resources, especially in my parents' case. It just has this history of scarcity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
woven in. And it's and it's weird to look at it and understand it and understand the trauma and the experience and the reaction and the um, emotional elements of it, like the the scarcity. There's like also some grief kind of things in there, and like
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff going on. And my perception is that my parents are not aware of that at all. Like
Yeah.
they're not really thinking about that. Like they're not thinking about trauma and like reactions and stuff like that. And so that's a weird thing to me, is to be an adult and to kind of like look at my parents and be like, damn, are you like healthy? Are you like okay? Like, and for to feel that they are not thinking about that part of their lives at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I I can't blame them, when you're stuck in it, when it's like
Yeah.
you can't you can't philosophize your way out of it. You have to first like heal the scars and then you can try to break free. But they might be stuck in the cycles that you see very clearly, and they just see it
Yes,
as fate, normal life.
yes. Yes, they're so, and I understand also all of that. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
you're just such a product of your environment. Like
Yeah.
I see how you think about the world. I understand that you almost feel like that's none of your business. To like be even like reflecting on things. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and it's an interesting break in like the family cycles,
Mm.
that we're both kind of like not in that, or we're
Hmm.
thinking about it differently. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's what helps us break out of the generational trauma, the intergenerational traumas. Because like I definitely like faced it through like my upbringing, and I and like through I eventually recognized what it was, but first I had to heal the pains and heal the scars. But and being away did make it easier for me to reflect on it, because I was able, we're both able to spend time away from that environment where we can like experience life without it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so interesting to think that like what were my parents doing instead of philosophizing about their generational trauma? It's like they were working and raising a family, like they were sacrificing constantly,
Yeah.
and and maybe just didn't have the reflection or the space and the time and the leisure that we do now, you know? It's just kind of, yeah, it's
Yeah.
something that we
No.
wouldn't have without them.
And it really is it's like a practice that needs to it's a habit that needs to be like kept up with.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't like practicing introspection for like decades, it's really hard to just pick it up without without some help, someone to help you out. And I'm hoping that like maybe I can help my parents and my siblings like with their introspection quest and like maybe asking the right questions to get them feeling and focusing on how they feel and what they want rather than maybe the pain that they want to inflict. And maybe that is what people need to help them get used to the habit of like thinking about like what do I actually want?
This is a conversation that comes up all the time on this podcast.
Yeah, cuz it's such a real problem and
Yeah,
I see
the
so much
disconnection from
pain.
self is like so deep.
Yeah. Like like I'm thinking about I'm thinking about like there's this thing in Seattle, or there's this event meetup event called Skip the Small Talk, right? And the idea is like you just have like deeper conversations. But I think about like what does a deep conversation mean
Mm,
versus
very
a shallow
interesting.
conversation, right? Is a deep conversation talking about talking about like politics or
Philosophy. Yeah.
philosophy, or is it talking about like personal things and how you feel about things?
Yes, I think dreams, hopes, fears, your most intimate uh things. Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's more of I think instead of thinking in terms of shallow and deep, it should be like personal versus impersonal.
Hmm. Intellectual versus emotional.
Well, I mean, you can be intellectual and emotional at the same time, but I mean um more of like where you are, where you're feeling, or where your opinions and your values and your feelings do get input. Um like the one of the topics we wanted to talk about is the very current event of genocide going on right now that is being funded by our government in like Palestine, in Gaza. And it's like, while it's a current event and while I'm not like personally impacted, it's something I think about a lot and
Oh,
it
every
pains
day.
me.
Yeah.
And yeah, as someone who has had family who like escaped a genocide like 100 years ago, it like pains me to see stuff like this still happen, and it pains me to see people like talk about it with indifference, or people just uh or people supporting it,
Oh
saying
my gosh, the support. That is on a whole nother plane. What the
yeah,
fuck? I don't know how anybody is honestly saying anything in the favor of Joe Biden right now, but there's all kinds of people out there
yeah,
defending him. Everyone saying you got to vote for him. All of this, I'm like, what? I feel like this with Gaza is like really, it's shattered every illusion that we have about the world and the United States place in it, you know?
yeah,
It's like very clear what kind of actor we are in the world and what kind of institutions support it. It's
yeah,
very fucked up to me that to think about, and this is, I haven't looked into my alma maters and what my university is doing with my tuition money and or the state's funding, but like I'm like, how insane is that, that these students who are protesting this genocide feel literally complicit in this genocide because their money is going towards it via this institution that they're trying to get an
Y-
education from,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. They didn't have a say in it. They didn't like,
Yeah, that was all invisible to us, you know?
yeah.
Why are we divesting from something that, you know, they just found out, or I don't know, I guess I just did.
Yeah. 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 The complicity and the enthusiasm to like support this is wild to see. It's so wild.
Where does it come from? I'm like totally blindsided by it. Yeah, I'm like, who
I
has that
don't
position
I don't know. I don't know
of
if
like
it's racism
loyalty to Israel? Yeah.
or if it's like some kind of weird like Christian thing or religious thing, cuz it's like it's so insane to see that this still happens, and it's so insane to see people support it. And everyone likes to think like in hindsight, oh, of course we wouldn't support the bad guys in these atrocities, of course, because it's very clear who the good guys and the bad guys are after the fact.
Ah, yes.
But when you're in the moment, like you can totally see like why people like fall for that. And like even last year we talked about like the treatment of homeless people in the US
Mm.
and how callously people talk about the homeless. And a lot of those same people speak callously about Palestinians, about
Mm.
children in Gaza, about Palestinians having their homes taken from them in the West Bank.
Yeah. What sorry, that's I thinking about what you said about your family. What genocide or horrific event were they fleeing from?
Oh, the Armenian genocide.
The Armenian genocide.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet this is news to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've never heard of the Armenian genocide.
Oh,
Don't
really?
you think that's kind of interesting?
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know?
yeah.
And to your point about like, or saying like, who we know who's good and bad in the future. In hindsight, it's very easy and clear, and I'm like, yeah, whoever's telling the story can tell whatever story they want
Yeah.
about who's good and who's bad, and this is the thing that I've been realizing about Gaza recently is like, i I was reading a book from, it was making comparisons between Ferguson and Gaza. Ferguson in 2014
Hmm.
and Gaza right now, as far as like occupation, militarization, oppression, using the police to, stop any kind of resistance to this fascism, to this fascist state. And I was like, wow, what the fuck? That's so weird. Like, what's Gaza doing in this old excerpt from 2014?
Yeah.
And and I saw
Yeah.
a political cartoon from 2018 that was similarly, the picture was literally Netanyahu receiving bombs from an Uncle Sam caricature and dropping them on Gaza, and I'm just like, these are things that have been happening, and they've been on the margins
Yeah.
of awareness, and the only thing that's different right now is that it's in the focus of
Yep.
awareness,
Yep.
right? Like, and there's like literally like four other genocides happening in the world right now. People are like
Yeah.
hashtag Yemen, hashtag what the wherever, but I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, why are there so many genocides flying under the radar?
Yeah. Well, I think
You
this
know?
one is the one that's caught so much attention because I mean the government and the media are really still trying to like bolster support for it. It's like a
Yes.
And because I mean, there are a lot of like support, a lot of moneyed interest in making sure that this keeps going, and that Israel's campaign succeeds. Like,
Right.
and whether it's like, maybe it's like the weird Christo-fascist religious beliefs around it, where Israel needs to be completed for the second coming or something like that. There are definitely groups like that with a lot of power that, I mean, we
Yeah.
know that a lot of our congressmen and women are like, do subscribe to a lot of these beliefs, which is terrifying. It's terrifying, by the way. And for all we know, Biden himself may be sympathetic to some of these beliefs. He is a devout Catholic and seems to really have a really like be interested in destroying the little place that Palestinians have to call home.
Yeah. Lizard people. It's not that far off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So this
But
kind of brings,
and
yeah,
we
sorry.
still aren't, and but like, the attention is solely on Gaza because of the active attention there. But like, the West Bank is still like, the West Bank, like, settler expansions are still going on, and that's still like business as usual. And I remember like reading
Right.
stories about that for years and years ago, of like the IDF like bulldozing people's homes, like
Yeah.
families that literally are living there, kicking them out, so that way someone who doesn't even live in Israel can come and move to that area.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
It's like,
where in the
yeah.
world would we ever approve of that? Like, if that were like happening in the US, people would be up in arms. People would be shooting each other. And you know what?
Sounds
That's what
like
the
gentrification to me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think gentrification and settler expansions are like are on different levels. Can we at least agree to that?
Okay. Okay.
We aren't
Okay.
putting guns to people's head, but we are. But gentrification does
The
economically push
displacement is
out
less
people.
directly violent.
Yes, yes. And you know, you could argue that it is just as pernicious because it is even more invisible, and it's supported,
Hmm.
but people still support the settler expansion project. So clearly they don't need the lack of violence is not really like convincing more people to support, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, these are all forms of imperialism that are still alive and well today, and are just coded in different language to make it seem like, oh, it's actually not imperialism. It's, we're brightening up the neighborhood. We're adding another Starbucks. It's not imperialism. We're letting Jewish families come, or we're letting families come from, Europe or America, and like start a life here in Israel.
Yeah. Yes. It's all very, you have to do a lot of gymnastics to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing to me that, I mean, having this like historical, like, what the hell, of me personally just realizing what, like, this like conflict in the Middle East, how long it's been going on, and
Yeah.
how like
And what it
literally just
means.
like cyclical it is.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm shocked that there are still Palestinians and Gazans still alive and like resisting and like
Yeah.
living. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, Jesus, man, this has been going on for forever. Like it actually kind of is, yeah, it's just amazing. I just don't even know, they're up against the most powerful military in the world, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of them are children.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, This is, I want to get into the intersection of our awareness of this genocide at this moment in time since October 2023 and the co-occurring TikTok ban.
Okay. Okay.
Related?
I mean, I think it's very interesting that the ban is happening right now, or that the ban is happening at all.
Yes. Do you know what the current status of that is? As
I
far as I
don't.
understand, we're under an ultimatum moment right now where
Yeah, but what does that
issued
mean?
a they've issued a timeline in which time China either needs to
Sell it or
sell to an American country or an American owner or whatever, or be
yeah.
banned. Which I'm like, what does that mean if it's under American governance? I'm like, what are the American social media companies doing or not doing to limit or highlight the information we're
I know,
looking at?
and
You
is this
know?
like Facebook and Zuckerberg trying to like get like force more people onto his platforms by like
Yes,
getting rid of the main competition?
definitely. And what's he doing to win the favor of the U.S. government? To have to have I can't even think about if TikTok got banned, like that would be it, man. Don't you think? Don't you think people would just like lose it? Like some people are similarly to sugars
Yeah.
literally addicted to the dopamine of TikTok. To take that
Yeah.
away?
I think it would definitely have a depressing effect on people, or like it would enrage some people for sure, but I don't know how long that would last before they
Hmm.
move on to the next platform.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um,
Because I mean, with
yeah.
enough time, like I'm sure, like you know, I'm sure Zuckerberg and has a plan to like get people to easily transition to Instagram and use Reels
Right.
instead, or YouTube Shorts, or
Hacktook, the new Facebook
yeah.
partner.
Yeah, right. And maybe ultimately, maybe he was hoping that they would sell and that he could buy it.
Right. Right. I think we're in the midst of this ultimatum happening, and I'm like fascinated to see what would happen if this got banned.
It's
I
such
think
a
it's
it's such a
yeah.
ridiculous ultimatum. It makes
Yeah.
no sense. It seems very strongly a First Amendment violation. Like this is literally
Oh,
the government.
it's bipartisan as hell.
Yeah.
Everybody's on board.
Yeah. By the same people who are always so free speech, blah blah
Oh
blah.
yeah. That all that bullshit is clearly irrelevant.
Oh
All of
my
that
god.
culture war
The
shit.
first time, or like the like yeah, it's amazing how the first time
Tread
they
on
hear things
me.
they don't
Tread on
like.
me.
Yeah. They hear people saying like I stand with Palestine, and they're like we have to shut down all of these people. We have to kill these protesters, we have to kill this app. We can't let anyone say the P word anymore.
For real. For real. Yeah, I've been paying attention to sources that are reporting like what are the most frequent search terms of people on TikTok, or what's the most popular hashtags of what's going on specifically about Israel and
Yeah.
Palestine. And it's off the charts. People are being way more exposed to the Palestinian perspective
Right. Right.
than we've ever seen before. And it's been
Mhm.
done via TikTok
Mhm.
and others. But for whatever reason, TikTok's getting the hammer.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to hide your atrocities when everyone has a camera and everyone has access to internet. And you know what? Maybe that's why in the very beginning, the first thing that Israel did before they started attacking Gaza is they cut off electricity, they cut off food, they cut off water, they cut off internet. And the
Hmm.
fact that they could do that, that they had the power to switch off all of these vital things is
Yeah.
like if you still support Israel in this campaign, ask yourself how like how can you justify to yourself that Israel had the reins, had the control of all these vital things? Gaza is not an independent country. Gaza is like
Mm.
this vassal state created by Israel to house Palestinians that they hadn't kicked out of the West Bank yet.
Yes, which I also can't help but see the parallels of the United States interest in controlling all of the social media outlets. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what if the US wants to do something similar to us and shut down our communication across each other? And what if TikTok is the one thing that they can't control? Huh, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not putting it past them at all. Never.
No,
So anyway, yeah,
it's good to be skeptical of of some of the things that they do. The power does in general.
they they can certainly squash an entire population. They know how to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their targets can be anybody. It could be any of us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they're showing it very clearly now in universities across the
Yeah.
country. Like it used to be that like the National Guard being called on the campus of like Kent State or whatever during the Vietnam War, that was like a a disaster. That's like a black mark, a blood stain
Yes.
on our conscience. And here we are doing it again now with even more militarized police.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. I tried to go to Columbia's encampment, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it's like I went like last week when it was kind of like whatever slow or whatever, and they've
Yeah.
got it blocked off for it's surrounded by cops and security for blocks. Like you can't
Oh
even
my
get
God,
you
really?
yeah, I like was near it and I was like looking towards the campus and a cop told me to keep moving.
Really?
I just like stopped and looked. Yeah. And yeah, I mean seeing what's going on there with like just like the intense riot gear, the the military force. I mean, and they're going in and they're expecting like literally casualties. You know, they're
Yeah.
preparing like EMT, they're preparing the
Well, with
casualty
like some of the
bus
videos I've
and like
seen with how the police are handling the protesters, it's insane. Like they because they're saying like, oh, these protesters are so violent, but you can see the videos yourself, and you can see like where the source of the violence is. Like you see like policemen like police officers like tackling people, pushing people downstairs, like
what are they so pissed about, you know? I'm just like, who do you work for? What is your
is it
problem?
anger or is it like the excitement? The
Yeah,
excitement of
yeah,
having that power at your back and being able
totally.
to use your disproportionate force where you not only have the force of the state behind you, you also literally have more force physically than these poor college students who don't have anything to defend themselves with. They're not carrying weapons, most like maybe some are,
Yeah.
but like generally they're not carrying weapons. They're just protesting. Maybe they're occupying a building for a little bit. Maybe they broke a window.
With
Heaven
good
forbid.
means, with good conscience, they are involuntary complicit in this and they want out, you know?
Yeah.
The demands are just to divest,
Yeah.
you know? And it's just like, mm-mm, not happening. That's where the money's at. That's where the power's at.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a sick thought though. I do think cops really do enjoy that. I think they have been waiting for it for weeks, you know? They're like, "Oh, we have to stand here and wait. I can't wait until we get the orders to go ransack this place, you know?"
I do agree. I do think that in general, cops do. They probably, I imagine they get some kind of excitement at least, maybe a dopamine rush of like being able to do their job.
And it's all this like weird like masculinity and like
Yeah.
the feeling that they're the good guys, that they're doing this on like the orders of some fucking moral authority or
Right.
something.
They have the authority at their back. Like it maybe in the past it was a religious authority. Now it's a state authority, but there is a power behind them that is saying like you will be fine.
A
You can
righteousness.
you have the
Yes.
righteousness. Yeah, your violence is righteous.
Oh, it's so fucked up. Yeah, it's really ugly to see.
Yeah. And to see people like cheer those on too. It's like I like it's insane. It's sick.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. I I have to finish a thought about the TikTok,
Okay, please do.
how TikTok is involved in this current moment. And okay, this is a little bit off, but I started watching the show Shogun, okay?
Okay.
Which is not about China. It's about Japan. I'm
Right.
still getting
Well,
a lot of
shoguns are from would be more Japanese anyway.
yes. Yes. Anyway, it sparked an interest in the way that the East and the West handle conflict. So in the show, when there's conflict, it's actually very problematic and very embarrassing and like beyond embarrassing, completely unacceptable to blow off with your emotions or to be like super direct, super angry. Like that's just like not culturally acceptable at all, which is so interesting because that's literally how the West runs is like who's the loudest, who can scream the longest, and whatever, who has the most lawyers, who can also scream,
Yeah.
and it's just like so I started like listening to The Art of War and I started thinking about the potential strategy actually of China and TikTok to literally just reflect the US's actions back to us. Just to play with the idea that China is surreptitiously using TikTok in a military strategy as they have been accused for years, just to play into that and to think about how their military strategy might be much different than anything that we would identify as military
Mhm.
strategy, right?
Right.
And I'm kind of like, damn, like by simply showing us what the US military is doing across the world, they have literally found an army of anti-American people in the country who are who are sowing division, you know, who are
Yeah.
very like anti-American. And I'm just like, damn, if this is literally what China's plan was the whole time, like that is a fucking genius move. Like it was so simple, they didn't have to do anything except illuminate this activity.
Yeah.
And yeah, they
Yeah.
now they
Yeah.
have a common now we have a common enemy and they have potential allies. One of the principles in the art of war is to never kill your prisoners, but to always try to turn them into part of your army. It's kind of a
Mhm.
resourcefulness thing. It's like
Mhm.
why would you waste somebody's life who you could actually end up having on your side? And
Especially
so
someone so
that's
potentially knowledgeable about your enemy.
exactly who's
Yeah.
already in your enemy's territory,
Yeah.
who's like already there. And I'm just like, good play.
Yeah.
That's my current thoughts.
I could, you know what? I could see it, and it's not even that much of a stretch because China like firsthand saw how the U.S. What brought helped bring the U.S. down and during the Vietnam War was the when the public started to realize
Photos.
the photos, yeah. When they started to
Hmm.
see with their eyes what was going on and hearing it. And let me tell you, being in Vietnam was so like you get to see like the other side of the war, the American
Yes.
war that they call it. And it was like it's brutal. It is insane what we did. It is absolutely disgraceful and it's the effects of our warfare are still felt in like Southeast Asia today. Like
Oh yeah.
there's still unexploded ordinances in Laos, in a huge part of Laos. People in Vietnam are still being born with defects from Agent Orange exposure, from the dioxin exposure. Like it is absolutely insane, and it speaks volumes of the strength of the Vietnamese people that they do not hold anything against us or against the other kingdoms and empires that they fought against in the last couple hundred years.
The devastation is just like un unreal. It's like
Yeah.
immeasurable. It's unconscionable. It's like, and you know, you think about the devastation it wreaks on our own people. And you know, when you were talking about that, I was like, God, that's so fucked up. You know, there should be some kind of reparations or something. And and I think about how we treat our own veterans and Vietnam veterans, and like what do we owe them for that, you know? What
Yeah.
have we done to them? And it's just like, yeah, the destruction internally and externally is just like irreparable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all for what? All for some foolish play, some like
What is
political
it? Is it
game of
literally just a game of crowns, you know?
yeah. I mean at the highest level, maybe it seems like that's all it is. You have these like these these powerful white men usually who are so like and unempathetic. They're so used to the power that they
Wow.
see people they don't even see people as people. They see them as resources, numbers on the screen,
Mhm.
something to catalog.
It's very interesting, you know. I do the only comparable thing I can think about right now is Game of Thrones, of course, the
Hmm.
fantasy world that George R. R. Martin created of all of these various characters and everybody fighting for power.
Yeah.
But you know, of course, it's in like a narrative form, and it's very clear and easy to understand that everyone's going after this singular, you know,
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
this throne, and and the complexity is all there, the like the you know the various like motivations and positions of power and access to resources, all that stuff is there, but it's just like it's on a global field, and it's on a scale that nobody tells stories about.
Hmm.
You know, nobody knows the characters or something, you know. I don't like quite can't quite grasp what's going on, you know. Like, I feel like the political players are just like a shitty little fucking rook, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're not even like the main players. They're just like a piece, like the presidents.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. You just like manipulate the political characters to like further this greater scheme that's beyond any political office, you know?
Yeah. It's this love of power, this like this drive to
I'm starting to get
control.
curious about this power. Sounds pretty good.
I mean, I'm sure it's a rush like no other, but you have to
Who do I
sacrifice
got to
what makes
crush
you
to get
human.
some? I'll do it. I want some of that sweet, sweet, whatever they're on.
Depending on who you ask, it's baby blood or or
Yeah,
lots of
yes.
cocaine or something.
Back to the lizard
Back
people.
to the
I'm
lizard
saying
people.
everyone thinks they're all discounted and crazy, but man, I actually accusing people of being mentally ill is totally part of the ableist structure of oppression. So, so much so.
What do you mean?
Like, to dismiss somebody's accurate, clear, and true observations about the United States government by calling them crazy
Mm,
is a way to you know, diffuse them. And it's like, oh, okay, well, so this is part of the ableist structure of the country, is that we have to treat people who are considered crazy like ostracized, they're out. Like you have to maintain that structure
Right.
so that you can weaponize calling people crazy and having them completely dismissed and marginalized for that reason.
Well, maybe it also depends on who's calling whom crazy. Because, like,
Yeah.
how would you, well, like, what about Alex Jones, for instance? Like, people have that opinion of him. Would you say that
That's so true.
he's
How does he
accurate?
get away with that? Well, oh, I I guess I guess do you think no, no, he's on some other shit. No, no, no. No, no,
What?
no.
What?
No. I don't think it's a fair I don't think it's a fair allegory, or I don't think it's a
Okay.
fair example
Okay. Okay.
of the concept. It's more, I don't know who Alex Jones serves. I have no idea what purpose he's
I think
serving.
he serves himself. I think maybe in the
Really?
beginning when he was very fringe, like maybe he was like at some point onto some things. Maybe there was a little bit of truth in a lot of the things he said. But I think nowadays he probably like saying that like, oh, they're all gonna call me crazy is like a marketing scheme from him.
Sure.
Because
Sure,
yeah.
which
Because
is a little,
then he can sell all of his supplements. And I think so when I look at
make it even crazier like a
yeah,
fox.
when I look at conspiracy theories, one question I ask myself is who could profit off of this? Like who
Right.
not just like whether the conspiracy happened, but who could profit off of this conspiracy theory itself? And
Or
usually,
even like, yeah, what it's creating,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And usually like a lot of these conspiracy theories are promoting like isolation. They're promoting like not trusting science
Mhm.
and not trusting anyone, but you can trust me because
That's the common thread, yeah.
I'm the one telling you the truth, the sole truth. And oh, you can't trust any of the doctors, and the food is poisoned, and the water is poisoned. So you have to buy stuff from me. You have to buy my food supplements. You have to buy my water supplements. You
Right.
have to buy my
Right.
like courses or whatever. I'm going to teach you how to think good
You
like
create a
me.
need. Mhm.
Hmm.
Wow.
So there's another example of how capitalism can turn even the best meaning conspiracy theorists into a whole industry.
Right. Yes. Wow. I'm I'm thinking about this. I mean, yeah, it's I feel like conspiracy theories are very much a sign of a moment too,
Hmm.
and the attraction that people have to them and the desire to like have things make sense. And it's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, this explains it." Like this is,
and it's also
this is
community.
something I can understand. Yeah.
It's community of like-minded people, and um, say what you want about religion, but one of the things that it did provide was community, and that helps people avoid isolation. But now that
And
like
there's a void.
yeah, there's a void. There's a void, and a lot of people fill that void with they find their own like-minded community, and then they it ends up becoming like the conspiracy theory ends up becoming a cult or a religion in its own right.
Right. Right. And the slur or the judgment of other people to say like you're crazy, that's crazy, it the community protective factor is like, no, we're not, because there's
Yeah,
a lot of people that agree with me.
yeah, and they're like because you are saying that I'm crazy, I know I'm right.
Now you're crazy.
Now you're crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Oh shit. Bad. Deep shit. Deep shit.
I've read that there is actually a strong link, or there is a link, a correlation between like the increased amount of social isolation, especially in American adults in their middle ages, and
Oh yeah.
like adopting these conspiracy theories. and participation in these theories.
Yes, it's something that is so lost, and we crave so much, and we don't know it, and we don't know how to do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's I just started watching this, and I've heard this about like in like discussions of utopias and stuff, is like I started watching this PBS series about the future. It's like features a lot of futurists, people like
Hmm.
talking about like, the future.
Yeah.
And and one of the things that keeps coming up is like our lack of imagination and our like clear ability to like identify the problems but not really be able to imagine the solutions, because it's like been so robbed from us for so long to
Yeah.
like understand how to create community. We're like, church. Like,
Yeah. Or we're like, oh wait, maybe we can come up with an app. I know.
an app,
Yeah,
yeah,
hangout
like,
app.
yeah, like we're
Yeah.
so lost on it, and like understanding how to like help each other and like rely on each other.
Yeah. And I want to one of my goals in life is to remind people that we are human and that connecting is a natural thing of humans, and that it's a lot easier than you think, and that these connections, this community, is one of the most important things that we can have in our lives.
It is, and the absence of it and the state of the way things are right now is like totally correlated. We feel so isolated and divided from each other.
Hmm.
My One of my best friends and personal heroes, Audrey Wiedemeyer, runs the Bike Library in Iowa City, a
Yeah.
nonprofit that's just dedicated to getting people on bikes. And when I was listening to this kind of commentary about like we don't have the imagination to understand what this looks like, I was thinking about her and what she's doing at that nonprofit on the
Yeah.
smallest scale. But it's really, really amazing and beautiful, like what it brings out in people. And it's all like self sustaining, like the energy and the momentum. People get drawn to it and they're like, wow, there's meaning here, there's connection
Yeah.
here. And it just like feeds itself.
That's awesome.
And it's so unique. There's all kinds of other nonprofits in the community that don't they're not like that. They don't have that quality. They're just like doing their thing. And it's just like amazing that I can see the utopia and something that she's created, and it is like so communal.
That's great. Shout out to her.
Yeah, yeah, they're starting a campaign to raise funds for actually to like get completely off the energy grid.
Oh wow. Oh, that's cool. See,
Yeah,
and
like be like self-sustaining, like energy wise. Yeah.
it's people like your friend that are so crucial, because maybe we as like on average can't imagine these futures, but some people can, and we
Yeah.
should be empowering those people to support their communities.
Absolutely. Yeah. Visionary.
Hmm.
Yeah. And right, that's where the investment should be. That's where the like power,
Hmm.
influence, whatever
Yeah.
should be. Yeah. We're on a whole fucked up criteria of what like power and success looks like right now. It's got to completely like shift, like, yeah, like our brains, like we can't even assess what is power beyond like status and money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so much of it is social, so it's yeah, it's so much what we relate to each other about. That's powerful.
And going back to talking about family, I think that's something that my dad is starting to learn, even in his in his 60s. He like wanted to he always viewed that his job as a father was to make sure that we lived a better life than he did, but it was exclusively in terms of the money, the monetary aspects. And according to those guidelines, he has succeeded. But in doing so, he has estranged two of his children, two of his four
Mm.
children, and one of them, I mean, my youngest brother is still in high school, so who knows, but like I'm seeing like similar patterns to when I was growing up. And I was like, and so I'm starting to talk to him and make
Mm.
him realize that, like, look, do you think they're living better lives now that that you succeeded in your goal? And he's like, I guess not. And
Oh,
like he's recognizing that he's in pain and that there's more to life these than the number in your bank account. There's so much more to it than just that.
yes. My family used to very interestingly say, we're trying to raise you to be functional members of society. Like they would literally say that to us, you
Oh my
know?
god.
And I just like think about what that means to them and what it meant to the way that they were raising me. Obviously, employable is a
Yeah.
very big piece of a functioning member of society. I know that that part of that criteria was in there. And you know, it's just kind of like to be employable is a whole nother thing, and to be employed is like not necessarily going to bring you any happiness at all,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
know.
And
But
it's
they
just,
thought that like this was the most important thing for you. And once we do that, once we make sure you've got a job, you're all good to go.
which is so true in so many ways. Like it's true that they did set me up for something, but like, but it's just like that the idea that this is the most important thing and that it's happy, it's good, it's like it's just kind of like, you know, not necessarily uh whatever the opposite of mutually exclusive is.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a package.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, the sun's about to set here and I have to go watch it. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I
I
probably
definitely
I
don't.
probably got like 10 more minutes left.
Okay, I don't want to
Any
avoid. I don't want
closing
you to miss
thoughts?
the sunset. This has been such a fun chat. It's always so much fun chatting with you, Tesla. So thank you for joining me.
Yes, always.
Do you have any last thoughts before we conclude?
I feel like we covered everything I care about already.
I know we did cover a lot of ground, and it was great.
We went to some emotional places.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
to talk about our families and to have a place that we can relate about those things, especially when one of the areas of relating is not being able to have these kinds of conversations with our families, is like so nice.
I know it does feel so nice to talk like that. Yeah, and you know
It's
what?
cool.
I want to create. I'm always available. I want to create these spaces for people so that we can all talk about the things that we want to talk about, things that
You're
we need to
doing
talk
it.
about.
It's so cool.
Thank
I'm a
you.
huge fan.
Thank
You're
you.
you're on it, you know? I mean, I think that part of what we were just talking about as far as having the vision of like what is community? What is our purpose as unique to us that we should really be pursuing in our lives is part of what you're doing here, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. This is definitely a big part of my uh, one of my modus operandi, my life goals, the work that I want to do. Yeah.
Well, I hope you become very powerful and you can tell me what it's like.
Oh my god, I don't know if I want to deal with that, but maybe
You'll
one day.
probably
Who knows?
crush me.
No, I promise not to forget about everyone.
You'll be bulldozing my house
No.
next. You're like, oh yeah. Now that I've got this community, I'm unstoppable.
Power corrupts. Well, thank you so much, Tessa, for joining. And thank you, everyone, for experiencing this conversation with us. I know we went to some very emotional and heavy places, but, this is what we do. And it's all good. It's good to have these personal, deep conversations. And I encourage everyone to have it. So thank you again. And as always, Embrace your chaos with kindness.